Alright, let's be honest with ourselves for a second. Think back to your very first game. Did you buy it legally from a store? Or was it given to you on a scratched CD by a friend? Or perhaps you downloaded a tiny file from a sketchy website, clicked it nervously, and prayed it wasn't a virus. If any of this sounds familiar, then congratulations. You've brushed against the world of game piracy. Piracy is one of gaming's oldest shadows. It has followed this industry for decades, changing shape with every new console, every new internet era, and every new way we distribute games. And it raises fascinating questions. Why do people do it? How do pirates actually break the protections companies build? And what are the consequences, both for developers and for us as players? In this video, we're going to explore the full story of game piracy. Piracy in gaming, simply put, means playing or distributing a game without paying for it. It can be as basic as copying files onto a USB drive, or as complex as cracking encrypted launchers protected by advanced DRM. Now, most people imagine piracy as just downloading a torrent and double-clicking the exe. But behind the scenes, it's a full-on war between two sides: developers and publishers, who spend millions creating games, and pirates, who spend time and skill finding ways to bypass protections. But before we get into the psychology, let's rewind and see where it all began. Game piracy didn't just appear one day on the internet. It has evolved alongside the gaming industry itself. In the 1980s, games were tiny programs on floppy disks and cassette tapes. Copy protection? Basically none. If you had 2 tape decks, you could copy games for your friends in minutes. In fact, many early developers knew piracy was unstoppable, so they focused instead on adding quirky manual codes, like look up word number 57 on page 12 of the manual. Lose the manual and you couldn't play. Of course, pirates scanned manuals too. Then came the 1990s, the golden era of CDs and consoles. This was when piracy really exploded. CD burners became affordable, and suddenly anyone could duplicate full games at home. Consoles like the PlayStation 1 and Dreamcast were famously easy to mod. You could install a tiny chip, and suddenly the system could run copied discs from anywhere. Street markets in Asia, South America, and Eastern Europe filled with stacks of pirated games, often selling for the price of a snack. By the 2000s, the internet had entered the picture. Torrents, P2P networks, and sites like the Pirate Bay turned piracy global. No longer was it just about sharing with your neighbor. Now you could download a game from across the world. And with faster connections, full AAA games spread like wildfire. Then came the 2010s, the rise of DRM. Companies started investing heavily in protection systems like SEO-ROM and later Denuvo, which promised to be uncrackable. For a time, games actually stayed piracy-free for months. But the pirate groups adapted. Every time a new DRM appeared, a new crack followed. And now in the 2020s, the industry has shifted again. Instead of trying to stop piracy outright, many companies are trying to make it irrelevant. Subscription services like Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, cloud gaming, and cheap indie bundles have changed the question from "Can I pirate it?" to "Why bother when I can play it legally for less effort?" But despite all these changes, piracy hasn't died. It's only changed shape. And the reasons people pirate today are as interesting as ever. You might think the answer is obvious, because it's free. But that's only part of the truth. Let's break down the main reasons people still pirate games today. In many parts of the world, a $60 game isn't just expensive, it's impossible. Imagine living in a country where the average monthly salary is $200. Suddenly, buying one legal game costs a third of your paycheck. In that context, piracy isn't greed, it's survival. Not all games are released worldwide. Some are locked by region, banned by governments, or never ported to certain systems. For those players, piracy is the only way to experience the game at all. Ironically, the legal version of a game can sometimes feel worse than the pirated one. Crashes, constant online checks, long installation processes, all because of DRM. Meanwhile, the pirated version often launches instantly. This makes some players ask, why should I pay for the worse version? Some pirates argue they just want to test a game. They download it, play for a while, and if they like it, they purchase the official version later. Not everyone does this, but it's a common justification. There's also a cultural side. Some gamers simply don't trust large corporations. They see piracy as a protest, a way to say, we won't let you exploit us. And finally, piracy is sometimes the only way to save gaming history. Many old titles vanish from stores after publishers shut down. Without pirates archiving ROMs and ISOs, entire chunks of gaming history would simply be lost. So piracy isn't just laziness. It's a mix of economics, frustration, rebellion, and even passion. All right, now let's talk about how piracy actually works. Not as a how-to guide, but to understand the technical dance between developers and crackers. At a high level, piracy is a four-step process. Game developers protect their creations using DRM, short for Digital Rights Management, which can include license keys, online verification, or file encryption. Think of it as a digital fortress, sometimes surprisingly fragile, sometimes ridiculously complex. Cracking groups are the masterminds on the other side. They study the game's code meticulously, looking for the checks that prevent unauthorized play. They don't just guess, they reverse engineer the program to find where the game validates ownership. For instance, an older form of DRM might check for the presence of the original game disk. The game won't run unless it detects that disk. Let's bring these concepts to life with some real-world examples. Spore, 2008. EA released Spore with heavy DRM called SEO-ROM, limiting the number of installs per account. Fans were furious. Paying customers were blocked from playing on multiple PCs. Pirates, on the other hand, had a working version within days. The game became one of the most pirated of all time. The lesson? Overly strict DRM can sometimes encourage piracy rather than prevent it. The Witcher 3, 2015. CD Projekt Red took the opposite approach. They released Witcher 3 DRM free. Their philosophy was simple. If players want to pirate, they will. Let's not punish those who pay. The result? Massive sales, critical acclaim, and one of the most beloved RPGs in history. Today, de novo is often used as a delay tactic, protecting initial sales while accepting that long-term cracks are inevitable. Even small indie games get pirated. Sometimes piracy can be a boon. If a game spreads widely through piracy, some players end up buying it legally later or supporting the developers through Patreon or donations. Now, how do companies fight back? There are four main strategies. 1. Technical protection. This includes DRM, encrypted files, online authentication, and console firmware updates. Some publishers even monitor for pirated copies online and try to patch or disable them remotely. 2. Legal action. Companies have sued torrent websites, pursued crack groups, and pressured governments to enforce copyright laws. Famous cases include lawsuits against the Pirate Bay and takedown requests for game ROM sites. 3. Business model shifts. Instead of only fighting piracy, companies now try to make it irrelevant. Free-to-play games like Fortnite remove any need for piracy. Subscriptions like Xbox Game Pass or PlayStation Plus give players instant access to hundreds of games for a low monthly fee. Regional pricing ensures that games are affordable in more countries. Community engagement. Some developers embrace their audience, offering free updates, events, and bonus content. This encourages players to stay legal, showing that paying customers get the best experience. The consequences of piracy are serious, especially for indie developers. Imagine a small team pouring months, even years, into coding, art, and music, only to have their game downloaded illegally thousands of times before they can recoup costs. This can mean lost salaries, canceled projects, and even studios shutting down. The financial harm is very real and devastating. And yet, despite this very real damage, the story of piracy has unexpected gray areas. Exposure. A pirated game spreading widely can generate buzz. Some players end up buying it legally later, or supporting the developers in other ways, like DLC or donations. Preservation. Classic games no longer sold on modern platforms survive through ROMs and emulators. Piracy, in this sense, preserves digital culture that would otherwise vanish. What do you think? Is piracy always wrong, or is it sometimes necessary? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into gaming culture.